Alright guys, so today I want to show you how I clean, maintain, and feed all my rodents. And you'll notice I have all my rodents in these rodent racks here. If I can kind of back up, you'll see the whole thing. So basically I have on the bottom here, these are rat breeder tubs. I'm actually not really using them for breeding. So I'm actually replacing my whole colony. I have feeders in here that are really old. So all the ones that say feeders are the old ones that are coming down. And then the female breeders, these guys I'm raising up. And these they're about the right size to actually breed. So I've been moving those over here and slowly replacing this whole thing. So I'm working down. I basically have 6 tubs here that have new breeders. These are the oldest, and sometimes these might not all get pregnant the first time around because they're kind of young. So these should be the ones that get pregnant and have babies first. And as you go down, I'm kind of leapfrogging the males the way I'm doing it. So I have male 3 here, male 4, and then male 1 and male 2. So next week what I'll do is I'll retire these 2 tubs of 4 breeder females, since they're really old. And then I'll move up some more breeders here, over into here, and then I'll leapfrog males 3 and 4 down to the new female. And the males are new this just last few months. So that's kind of how I'm organizing all my rats. And then up here I have mice and African soft furs. So I have some mice that have some litters here. They're just some of them have a few, some of them have a lot, some of them don't have any yet. This one actually had a litter that I fed off. And then I have just 2 tubs of African soft furs. And if you know anything about African soft furs, they produce really, really slow. And they're almost like pets, kind of, because they produce so slow. So basically, before I had all these racks, I had them all in aquariums, and it was a lot of work, let me tell you. I was going through changing the water and the food every day. It was taking me like an hour a day, at least. And then on the weekends to clean it would take me all weekend. And it was getting to the point where I didn't have any time because I was just spending all my time on the rodents. So now basically my routine every day when I come in, what I'll do is I'll check the water, and it's a little bit low, so I happen to have some water here. And these lids are just kind of sitting on here. And what I'll do is I'll just top them off. And I'd say they probably go through, I'd say maybe a gallon every other day for all these rats. So they don't use a whole lot of water. And what I'll do, I'd say maybe every 3 days I top them off. And it depends on how many rats you have. If you're going through a lot of water, it means you have too many rats in the rack. And it's time to get rid of some, feed them off or sell them or whatever. Sometimes I'll sell them live to the pet store, and sometimes I'll sell them as feeders to another breeder. And then usually what I do is I just fill them to this top line right here. I usually don't go above that. So when the levels start falling, I can definitely see it come down. So I really pay attention to the water, because if they run out of water, they don't have very long to survive. You definitely want to keep an eye on the water. That's like the number one thing. And then I'd say maybe twice a week, I look at the food. And for the food, these guys, it's pretty incredible. So these racks can hold an incredible amount of food. And they swing back really easy. So when I start seeing a little bit of metal here, that's when I go through and start feeding. And you can see there's just a little bit there and a little bit there. And I like to keep them like really, really, really full. This one's kind of in the dark. If I can sling it around to the light, maybe a little more. So you can see on this one down here, this is almost running out of food. They can still get this food. They use their little feet and they grab the piece and they eat it. But I definitely don't let it get further than that. And let me show you how I do the food. Okay, so for the food I use Missouri 6F, and it is a rodent breeder. And I basically feed 50 pounds at a time. These come in 50-pound bags, and I'd say it's fairly expensive. I think I'm paying about $23 a bag. And I probably go through a bag a week, I'd say. So what I do is, first thing I'm going to do is just empty this bag right into this tote here. And the bags basically just have a little pull tie right at the top that you can pull off. Okay, so this is 50 pounds of Missouri 6F. And I usually just use this little scooper. It's I can't remember how many quarts it said on it, but it's ripped off. But it's this, I got it from the feed store. And what I do is I just scoop some up, and then I basically just pour it in until it's full to the bottom of the tub. And you can probably see better on this side. There's a little better light. And I'll just go through each level, and then I'll just do that. And then what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll kind of just push it all forward as much as I can. And you can kind of get a feel for how much is in there. So this one is really full, and this one was really empty over here. So when you push it forward, you get another big empty spot down here where you can see the screen again. So what I'll do is I'll come back on that one and just use another scoop, kind of so on and so forth. And usually what I'll do is, if I see screens, I'll usually hit those first and then come back and kind of hit the other ones. And then on top, it's basically the same thing. And I store some of my tubs on top, so you always have to look under your tubs to make sure there's food. The mice don't really go through it that fast, but if you have rats, especially if you have a rat tub with a lot of rats, you'll notice all of a sudden one tub will go empty and the rest will be full. So you really kind of have to keep an eye on it. So I'm going to go through and fill up some of this. Okay, so usually when I get down this far, I use a sieve, because what happens is you get a lot of like a fine powder in there. You can actually add the powder and kind of work it through the wire, and it goes into the tubs before you clean, but I prefer just to keep it out of the tubs and I kind of wanted to, like a thicker, something with bigger, to get something with bigger holes. I've been thinking about upgrading this to something where you can just shake it a couple times and it'll take all the dust out. But if you really look at this, I mean, down at the bottom, it gets really, just a lot of broken up powder. You really don't want that in your tubs, especially long term. Right before I clean, I usually feed right before I clean, so if any goes down in the tubs, then I just clean it out with a change of bedding. But, you know, looking at this, that 50 pounds didn't go very far. I might actually do another bag. So a lot of guys will watch me do videos, and I'm going through my hatchlings and go, oh yeah, this snake's worth $300, this snake's worth $400, and to some people that aren't really into business, they think, oh yeah, you can make a lot of money on snakes. You can make decent money, but you have to realize there's a cost associated with that, that income. So this is my second bag, so that's like $50 worth of feed right there. And if you notice, I went through and fed some of my hatchlings the other day. That was another $50 worth of rodents just for one feeding. So as you can imagine, with all the stuff in there, and then not to mention the cost of the parents and the cost of the racks, and just, you know, on and on and on. But at a point, there comes to a point, if you're thinking about getting into it and expanding, that you actually own all the equipment and you don't really have to buy anymore unless you're really expanding. So I just want to let you know that there is a cost with the bedding and the food for the rodents, and then if you run out of rodents, then you have to buy rodents, which is even more expensive. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get the second bag in here and start loading up in the back of these racks. Alright, here's my second 50 pounds of rodent food. Okay, so this is basically what I'm left with here in the bottom of the tub, just some powder. And I usually just toss it in the trash. And then this is pretty much a full rack. You can almost see on some of these, I could almost add a little more. But I tend not to add until it needs 50 pounds. And there's plenty in each level probably for the whole week. But you definitely want to check every other week. Twice a week. I usually check like on a Wednesday and then Saturday or Sunday. And just make sure everyone has food. You definitely don't want the food to run. They can last longer without food than water, but you definitely don't want to run out of food, that's for sure. So then what I do is I kind of just go through and, you know, just in case there's any powder, I just kind of move around a little bit just on the outer edge. I already did it on all these levels. And that just drops if there's any extra dust, it drops it in the tubs. So that's pretty much it for the food. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention when you're doing the food. If you get one of these racks and you're doing it for the first time, when you add the food, you can accidentally push the tubs forward. And if you push the tubs forward, the rats can get out the other side. So you definitely want to, and there's really no locking mechanism on these tubs. So you definitely don't want any tubs pushed forward to where your rats are getting out. So I was just turning these racks around and putting them in place, and I noticed that since I put 150 pounds or 100 pounds of food in there, it smells really good in here, even with all my dirty tubs. And on that note, I kind of wanted to show you my air cleaner. So this is kind of my air cleaner that I use. I turn it off for the videos because it's really loud, but you can see I just put like I can kind of show you. So when I'm cleaning, basically I think all this in the front, I think this is dust from the food, believe it or not, mostly. When they're eating it, and just kind of fluffs in the air. So I basically just take that and I vacuum it. And here's my setup. So basically I take this little space heater, and if you lay it on its side, it turns off. And then I turn my fan on high. And then I put this in front here, and then I point the space heater right towards it. And then what I have is a little jump start. It's actually 83 in here right now, but it's actually set to 82. So I think it's a degree off because it kind of sets it to 81. So that's kind of my setup, so basically it'll heat. And go into that fan and then shoot out of the top of that fan and then hit this probe up here, and this basically turns the heater off. Let's turn this off for now. Let's see. That way. And when I'm doing a video, I'll just kind of put it up like that just so it doesn't make so much noise. But it's like a carbon impregnated filter on the front. I use 2 layers. And that really cuts down on the smell. And then just the air circulation, I think, really helps a lot in here. And then the heat, that's my only heat source. And it keeps it basically at 81 degrees, even though it's set on 82. So I thought I'd show you that real quick. So let's talk about bedding for these rats. So I'm convinced that the only way to have a successful operation, profitable operation, breeding rats, is to have some cheap bedding. And the cheapest bedding is pine. And this is the pine that I use. And if you use the wrong pine, so basically, pine is toxic to rats. And what I used to do is I used different kinds of pine shavings, pine chips, all different stuff. And I was at the point where I was throwing out a dead rat at least once a day because it was so toxic. And then I switched to shredded paper, and I went to shredded paper is good. If you have a source of shredded paper, it's free if you can shred it. I tried shredded newspaper, and I found out that's toxic, so you want to stay away from shredded newspaper. Look at my snake. He was yawning. I don't know if you caught that, but that was pretty funny. But anyway, I was getting sidetracked there. So I was getting so exasperated, I switched to cypress mulch, and cypress mulch is so expensive, it's unbelievable. And I was spending so much on cypress mulch. My rodents were doing great. I was going in the hole buying cypress mulch. So finally I found this breeder. It was actually Scales and Tails down in Denver. And I was like, I wanted to see their rats and see their operation and how they were set up. And they introduced me to this bedding. It's Rocky Mountain Softwood Screen Shavings. And I get it from Walker Quality Cajun Feed down in Denver. And I noticed some of the Big R actually started carrying it up here. And it's great because I get a block like this for it's only like $7, and I can do almost all the tubs on one block. I mean, between this little bit and that block, I could probably do all my tubs for $7. And it's, and it'll last longer than anything else because it absorbs odors so much. So you have to really, really be careful. You can do shredded paper too, but it won't last a week or a week and a half like this stuff will. So if you look at some of my tubs here, I like to clean on the conservative side. So if you notice, this only has 4 breeder females. These are older females. You look how clean the substrate is. This is after a week and a half, believe it or not. And then this one I just cleaned the other day because I was kind of moving rats around. So you can see it's it's still really good. And probably my worst, I have some tubs that are almost overloaded. I need to go through and thin them out. These are absolutely probably the worst. So this has a lot of rats, and you can see it's very dirty. I don't really like to keep my rats jammed in there that tight, and the only reason I did it on this is because I had some I had some females with babies that grew up, and I kind of just jammed them all together this week. I need to go through and really, really thin these out, but yeah, these are jammed in there too. A bit too tight for my comfort. I mean, some people really, really can jam them in tighter, but I don't like to. I like at least so they can have an area to move around a little bit, so it's not too bad. So I'd say those are probably my absolute worst tubs out of the whole thing. So I'll show you how I go through and clean the tubs. Okay, I should say one more thing about this bedding. There's actually a con to this bedding that I don't really like compared to all the other beddings that I've had. I mean, it's cheap, it lasts a long time. The only problem is if you look at my floor, the rats, especially the mice, they like to really, if you look at all the little bits, they'd like to really dig into it and push it out, and it's a mess. It gets all over the whole room, and I'm constantly in here with the vacuum trying to pick it up. I found a little piece of food on the floor. But that's the only thing I really don't like. It's a little more maintenance, I would say, as far as cleaning the room. And this I even pushed back in this little hatchling rack right by the rack, and you can see even on the hatchling rack it's got a little bit on there from the rodents just kind of pushing it out. But other than that, I would say it's probably the perfect bedding that I've used for the rodents so far. Okay, so when I'm cleaning tubs, what I'll always do is I'll have an empty tub right here. And if I don't have an empty tub, I'll figure out how to empty a tub. And this one, you can see I have an empty tub here, an empty tub there. And I like to really keep them towards the end if I can. And these are kind of in the middle because I'm rotating. Basically what I'm doing is I'm looking for the biggest female breeders to pair up, because a lot of them aren't quite to the size yet. But what I do is basically just open it a crack, and for this one over here, I'll actually get the ladder, because I like to be up here close to the rats. And this is the time really when a rat can get out, and if he gets out, then you're chasing it all over the place until you can find it. So you really have to be kind of careful on this, because you don't want your rats to get out. And that's why I like the ladder, because I like to get up here right with the rats. So basically what I do is I just gently grab them by the tail and move them over. And they're friendly enough to where, you know, if you move slow, oh, some of them are a little skittish. And I don't think they're used to me talking. But, I mean, that's basically it for that. And then I just pull the tub out. Okay, for the tub, usually what I do is I just put it right in the trash here. And then there's actually a couple different ways you can clean your tubs. What I like to do, I actually have bleach in one and then an F10 solution in the other, the red for bleach. And for my rats, what I like to do is just kind of spray them down a little bit with the bleach solution. And that's pretty much it. And then what I'll do is I'll come back with a pump-up sprayer and just spray it out. And usually what I do is I have several extra tubs up on the top, and I'll make like 4 tubs, and as I'm going along, I'll actually let these kind of sit in the bleach, and then at the very end, then I spray them out with a pump-up sprayer. And I think I'm actually going to go to something a little different. So some people actually say that they just change the bedding without actually spraying it down with bleach. And they say they only spray down with bleach like once a month, which would save me a lot of time going through and spraying and rinsing them out and drying them with the towel. I mean, that's probably like 2/3 of my time. And I'm thinking, you know, now that it's spring and I have a lot of work with the hatchlings and the puppies and the baby cows and everything, that I might just go to that during the spring to kind of save some time so I can catch up on everything else. And maybe just swap out the bedding without actually spraying them down with bleach. Alright, then for spraying down the tubs, I just use my little sprayer wand like this. And I don't really have a sink down here in the basement. And at first I thought it was kind of a bummer that I didn't have a sink, but really this doesn't take long at all just to kind of spray it down with the sprayer. So it's pretty painless. Then what I'll do is I'll just go in with an old towel and dry it off. So normally what I do actually is I cut these bags to where it's kind of like a angled cut on the top. And then I'll just kind of bring some down into the tub and then spread it out. I like to give it a good thick layer. They say the thicker the layer, the longer it'll last actually, which is pretty nice. But that's kind of the thickness I like to do. And I'll just go through the tubs, and I like to kind of prep the tubs with the shavings first, and then get all those ready. Okay, so from here, what I like to do with the clean tubs full of fresh substrate, I like to put little binder clips, and that way I can kind of look through. You know, I changed a couple earlier when I was moving some females over, and I changed a couple over here. So, you know, yesterday I was kind of working on this a little bit, and I know which ones have binder clips. So I'll go through and do binder clips on all of them, and then next week, when I'm cleaning, I'll actually take the binder clips off, so it'll be kind of the reverse. So another thing I do, I guess I'm a little OCD. So I just replaced this one and this one yesterday. But what I like to do is I actually like to keep going. So basically I move everything to the left, and then this one up, and everything back to the left. So when I'm going through and looking at tubs, I know so this would be, you know, the oldest babies, and then all the way down, youngest and youngest and youngest, all the way till you hit the males, wherever the males are in the rotation. Actually before the males, because it takes a few weeks before the males to have babies. So I just like to keep everything kind of in a flow, so I know the oldest on the top left, and kind of in the rotation. So basically this was already clean when I moved them over here to a clean tub. And this is already clean, so I'll move these over without cleaning this one. And then I'll move these over without cleaning this one. Okay, for the mice are a little bit different. I would say, so on the mice, you definitely don't really have to get up there and have an empty tub. Because they usually won't jump out of the tub when you're working on them. This is a really old. That looks like a male. This is a big old fat male. And this old female, I wasn't sure if that girl was gonna lay. Once they get that old, they're pretty much time to be retired. And look, they only laid just a few little babies. You know, usually they'll lay like up to 16 babies. These guys are about ready to be retired, so they're pretty much near the end of their life. But that's kind of how I do the mice. I just pull the whole tub. And they're good enough to where they don't jump out. And the ASF, they're kind of, I don't know, they could jump out. They're a little squirrely, so I might actually do, I actually had an extra tub in here, and then I filled it up, I think with this one lone mouse. So probably what I'll do is put that one mouse in a different container. And I really like to move the ASF like the rats, so they don't jump out. Kind of just a little crack in the tub so you can pop them right in and keep them contained. So, and the other thing on the mice, you could probably get away with not. The funny thing about mice too is they're actually naturally potty trained to go in one corner. I think that's kind of interesting. Where rats will just kind of scatter it all over. Seems like the mice always go in one corner just naturally. It's kind of interesting. And I think on the mice, I'm definitely going to spray these down with a bleach solution. Especially on that one spot there. Mice are a lot stinkier than rats. And I usually try to keep just one or two males in my whole mouse colony because the males are really smelly. And usually just one or two in the whole snake room. You can't even hardly tell that there's mice in here. So that's pretty much it. I guess I didn't go through these other tubs here. These are the breeder tubs, but it's the same as the big tubs. Basically, I just have an empty tub, and I just pick them up by the tail, move them to the other tub, and go through the whole thing. And these aren't really in any kind of order. I had them kind of the female breeders that I was replacing, the oldest up here on top, and then the youngest kind of down on the bottom. These are some of my younger female breeders, and they're a little bit smaller. I'd say probably a little bit too small to breed still, so that's why I was kind of fishing through them. But they're getting close, and I'd say here in another month or two I'll have this whole rack full of new breeders, and I'll be cranking out some serious rats. So basically what I'm doing is I'm pairing up 8 females and 2 males a week, and kind of going through. So every week I pair up a new 8 females, and then I'm letting the males sit with the females for 2 weeks and kind of leapfrogging just to make sure I hit the pregnancy cycles, make sure all the females are pregnant. So with an average of 10 babies, I'll get like 80 a week, and they can have up to 16 babies. And with all my hatchlings plus all my snakes, hopefully that'll be enough. I may actually have to buy some frozen. So that's pretty much it for the rat breeding and the mouse and the African soft furs. And it doesn't really take that much time with these racks. The biggest thing is going through on the weekends and changing all the bedding. And I just noticed just now, this is the first time I've tried it with just changing them out with without spraying them with bleach, spraying them with water, and then drying them. And it's going like 4 times as fast. It takes me usually takes me like 3 hours to do the whole rack, and I'm guessing if I do it this way, it'll probably be less than an hour, which is pretty reasonable. And then just go through maybe once a month. And I actually, when these tubs are empty, I took a good whiff in there and smelled the tub, and I couldn't smell anything at all. And my nose is really sensitive, so that's kind of, I guess, that's kind of another way you can do it too, is just kind of look to see if it's clean and take a good whiff. And if it smells off, then hit it with the bleach. But I might just try it every other time to kind of spray it with the bleach, just to kind of try it out and see how my rats do. But that's pretty much it. It's not as much work as you would think, and I have a lot of rats here, believe me. So the other thing is these racks are really expensive, and they're not even full racks. So this is actually 2 levels short of a full rack. So a full rack would be up to the ceiling. The problem is I couldn't put the water bucket up here. And the more you buy all at once, the cheaper it is. So really, for a full, this is an ARS grow. They call it a grow out rack. I like to use it as well. I'm not really using it as it's intended, because I'm breeding and growing out at the same time. So basically, what I'll do is I'll have babies in here until I feed some off, and then if the babies get too old, then I'll put them down here in some of the bottom tubs. And that's kind of what these are. These are the ones that didn't get fed out. Some of them are getting really big, almost ready to be Lucy size. But it's definitely worth having these racks. It will save you a lot of time and a lot of money in the long run if you're breeding a lot of snakes. So that's pretty much it for my rodent breeding and how I take care of them. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.